Tonight, the province orders hospitals to brace for a spike in COVID-19 patients.
And I've never seen anything like this, and I've never been as concerned as I am now.
Hospitals being told to prepare to activate emergency plans, including clearing beds. This as Ontario tops 2,000 new daily COVID-19 cases for the first time. Plus,
I can announce that Canada has secured our second agreement for early doses of COVID-19 vaccines.
More good news on the vaccine front. The federal government announcing doses of the Moderna vaccine are on track to arrive before the end of the year. And the prosecution rests its case as the trial for the Yonge Street van attack killer nears its end. Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. Well, hospitals in the province are being ordered to brace for a surge in COVID-19 patients. The number of infections are on the rise, and so are hospitalizations. Our Greg Ross joins us live now from Toronto General Hospital. And Greg, this is all coming from a memo issued by Ontario Health.
That's right, Kelda. The president and CEO of Ontario Health, Matt Anderson, essentially telling all hospitals that they need to prepare to go into surge capacity mode within the next 48 hours. Now, in that memo, which we have obtained a copy of, Anderson says that hospitals must take action now in order to meet escalating capacity demands in the coming days. Now, for many others in the healthcare industry, this is essentially the sounding of the alarm bells, letting us know that things are about to get a lot worse.
This pandemic is clearly rapidly accelerating.
And as a result, the president and CEO of the Ontario Hospital Association says the situation in hospitals is dire.
I've worked at the OHA in different roles for almost 16 years, and I've never seen anything like this, and I've never been as concerned as I am now.
CBC has obtained a memo from Ontario Health that was sent to all hospitals in the province. It says, we have entered a more critical phase of the pandemic where we are seeing widespread community transmission. Our ability to care for patients, COVID and non-COVID alike, is being challenged. As a result, hospitals have been asked to activate surge capacity planning within the next 48 hours.
You're looking really at the systematic shutdown of elective activity. Elective is a kind of general term. I don't really like it because it almost suggests that the care that's needed is optional. But it can be cancer care, it can be cardiac care, it can even be organ transplantation.
There are currently more than 900 COVID-19 related hospitalizations across the province. Ontario Health says hospitals need to make an additional 10 to 15% of their beds available for COVID patients.
The 900 now feels a lot worse than the 900 or even the 1,000 that we had in the spring.
This emergency room doctor says the latest surge is taking a physical and mental toll on frontline healthcare workers who are once again being pushed to the brink.
It's just fatiguing, and I've said that before. It's just after 9 months of this, everybody's getting tired.
And yet the latest projections are suggesting the situation is only going to get worse. With the holiday season upon us, health officials are concerned about another big spike if people ignore provincial guidelines to stay home, instead gathering with family and friends for celebrations.
Wouldn't it be a tragedy for the worst part of this pandemic to happen just as the vaccines arrived on Canadian soil? Because that's what we're looking at in the month of January. We're looking at, in communities right across this province, unnecessary death, lifelong damage to the health of people. And these aren't strangers. They're people. They're your friends. They're your neighbors. They might be your mom or your dad. It might be your grandma or your grandpa.
Yeah, so the message can't be any clearer from these health care officials. They're saying stay home this holiday season if you can. They say people should only celebrate with their own immediate family in their own household. They say it's better to scale things back this year and live to celebrate next year. Kelda?
Yeah, certainly important advice. Thanks so much, Greg. That is our Greg Ross reporting live for us tonight. And still ahead tonight, we'll take a look at why hospitals in Scarborough are being hit harder than most. That's coming up a little later in the show. Justin Trudeau says Canada is on track to get 168,000 doses of the Moderna vaccine before the end of the month, once it's approved here.
The Moderna vaccine does not need some of the extra special handling requirements of the one from Pfizer, including ultra-cold freezers. And that makes it a better option to ship over long distances to more remote areas. So doses of this vaccine will be directed to the north, as well as to remote and Indigenous communities.
Moderna vaccines need to be stored at -20 degrees, which is possible in most commercial-grade refrigerators. Remote and rural communities lack the infrastructure to safely store the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine at temperatures 70 degrees below zero. Now, a final decision from Health Canada is expected this week. The Prime Minister says Moderna will begin shipping the doses within 48 hours of approval. The vaccine also requires 2 shots per person over several weeks. In total, Canada is expected to get 6 million Moderna and Pfizer vaccine doses by next March. Well, close to 500 frontline healthcare staff in Ontario have now received their first dose. And with the Moderna vaccine getting closer to rolling out in the province, some long-term care home residents are a step closer to getting their shots. Lorenda Redekop has more.
I'm feeling perfectly fine. No side effects at all.
All smiles today from one of the first people in Ontario to get the shot yesterday.
I did it! You did it!
She's a former nurse, now executive director at a long-term care home where residents died in the first wave and staff members became ill.
It brought our staff down to just bare staff. So that's when I put on my scrubs.
The province says long-term care residents will be vaccinated once the expected Moderna vaccine arrives. It's easier to transport because it doesn't require super cold storage.
It'll go into the long-term care homes first, those in greatest need, in hot zones, in lockdown zones, those who've had the COVID-19 tragedy visited upon them, perhaps those homes where the province has had to intervene to assist them.
He says it could take weeks or months before they can get to homes not in red or lockdown zones.
There's light at the end of the tunnel.
A caution, though, from the opposition.
Problem is that it's a very long tunnel. And Doug Ford's plan is to let the virus run rampant until we get there.
Today, Ontario reported a record 2,275 new cases, over 2,000 for the first time, with a caveat. It includes an extra 2.5 hours worth of data as the province changes its system. Still, test positivity is up above 5%. So are hospitalizations.
This government needs to take this issue seriously, and they need to show us that they're willing to announce further actions now to keep everybody safe and protected.
The Premier was asked about the higher rate of people testing positive.
It is concerning when we get into those percentages.
As to whether stricter measures could be coming,
Really, everything's on the table.
but he didn't provide any details about what that could mean. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
More schools are closing this week due to COVID-19 concerns. The Toronto Catholic District School Board is dismissing students at All Saints, St. Aidan and St. Conrad until the new year. The TDSB is closing doors at Humber Summit Middle School. And students and staff at Clare Lee Public School will also be dismissed after advice from Toronto Public Health. More than a dozen schools across the city are now closed and will remain so until at least January 4th. The province is ordering a temporary takeover of a long-term care home in Etobicoke after a COVID-19 outbreak. 63 residents at Rivera Westside have tested positive and 20 people have died. There are also 90 cases among staff members. It is the first time a long-term care home has been ordered to retain an outside management company. Universal Care Canada currently manages 11 other long-term care homes in Ontario. The province says the company will manage Westside for 90 days, saying the order is necessary to protect residents. And the trial of Minassian has finished hearing evidence. Closing arguments from the prosecution and defense in the Yonge Street van attack case is expected to start on Thursday. Minassian has pleaded not guilty to 10 counts of first-degree murder and 16 counts of attempted murder in the 2018 attack. The defense is arguing the 28-year-old has autism spectrum disorder and is not criminally responsible for his actions. The Crown, meanwhile, says Minassian knew what he did was morally wrong. And police have arrested a man after a bizarre incident in a Toronto Plaza parking lot.
Not going to end well.
Call the police! Call the police! Call the police!
It happened last Thursday in a parking lot near Dufferin and Steeles. Police say a male motorist was confronted by a man driving a pickup truck who complained about his parking. The pickup truck driver then damaged the other man's car with a sharp object and began to flee. Investigators say that's when he drove his vehicle towards the man, who jumped onto the hood to avoid being hurt. The suspect then tried to drive away with the man still clinging to the vehicle. A 73-year-old is now facing charges of dangerous driving as well as assault. Coming up, close to half of all the critical care patients in Scarborough hospitals have COVID-19, a much higher rate compared to the rest of Toronto. Our Lauren Pelly looks at why after the break. Plus,
active weather coming our way, highly localized in some cases. I'm meteorologist Colette Kennedy. I'll tell you about the snowfall accumulations coming up.
Welcome back. Hospitals in Scarborough are having a particularly hard time dealing with COVID-19. Close to half of all critical care patients there have the virus. That's much higher than in other parts of the city. Lauren Pelly takes a look at why.
This is one of the parts of Toronto hardest hit by COVID-19.
Every day I'm seeing someone else with a really severe illness from COVID.
Dr. Martin Betts heads the critical care team at the Scarborough Health Network.
At least on 3 occasions during the pandemic, we've cared for multiple family members simultaneously in our intensive care unit.
A CBC News analysis shows nearly half the total number of patients in Scarborough's intensive care units are now battling the illness. That's a stark contrast from the rest of Toronto's hospitals, where fewer than 1 in 5 ICU patients have the disease.
You know, what is it about Scarborough that has led to our community being affected, more significantly than many?
The reason, according to Betts, isn't so much that patients here are less healthy, but that many are essential workers living in multi-generational homes. Scarborough resident Nathan Shan points to his own neighborhood, where most people don't have the luxury of working remotely.
They want to protect themselves, they want to protect their children, and they want to protect their elders in their families. But after a few months have passed, it has given them no choice but to go back to working in conditions that are not safe, to be exposed in a way that they are in the retail and trucking and other sectors.
Toronto officials are taking note after months of data showed a clear trend.
Frontline workers in often low-paid, precarious jobs and disproportionately racialized Torontonians are being hardest hit.
A new COVID-19 equity plan from the city's Board of Health highlights the need for isolation sites, reduced crowds on transit, and increased access to testing. Others want longer-term supports and better sick leave.
We are tired of getting the scrap that come from every level of government.
All of it makes Scarborough a case study for other communities.
And we know we're not out of the woods yet.
For Betts, who has watched family after family torn apart, the end can't come soon enough. Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
If you're walking along Queen or Danforth Avenue this week, you might notice some down-on-their-luck mannequins.
The mannequins here, they just look kind of dead. It's disturbing.
It's good. It's good to make people aware, and I'm here shopping locally, as is my husband.
The Broadview Danforth BIA set them up to appear as if they are begging. The mannequins holding signs that read "Hungry for customers" and "Kick to the curbside pickup." The display is meant to make people think about the shops that are struggling. We spoke to the chair of the area's BIA, who says this past Saturday would have been the busiest day of the year for these businesses.
We would have been bustling. We would have had carolers on the street. There would have been crowds, enjoying the day, the good weather, the winter. But now it's like a tumbleweed. Revenue is down, but bills are steady and they keep coming in. So you dip into your savings. We're again desperately trying to get the attention of policymakers, decision makers. We need an even playing field with big box. We would like to see a by appointment only shopping experience in store. Oh, we're disappointed. Nobody's listening. But we're not going to stop. We're going to keep going until somebody gives us a call. I would love to extend an invitation to Premier Ford to come down, walk the Broadview and Danforth neighborhood with me, meet the backbone of his economy or not, because they're closed, and let's have a discussion.
The display will run for the next couple of days, and events like it will be set up in other neighborhoods. It's a cold one out there tonight and partly cloudy with flurries developing overnight. Let's bring in our meteorologist Colette Kennedy because there is a lot to touch on. And Colette, the cold air has arrived and we're bracing for snow.
Thanks, Kelda. We have so much to kind of unpack, so to speak. I don't usually use that phrase, but we do with the weather that's happening over the next 24 to even 40 hours here. We've got the cold air in place. We know that. We had the lake effect with the lake effect off Georgian Bay and Lake Huron. Well, now different winds, different direction, we're going to see lake effect coming off the west end of Lake Ontario. So adverse travel conditions, I'm going to show you where the advisories are. Those strong winds driving that snow and accumulations, I'll show you those as well. But with that cold air, keep in mind with those strong winds, it's not just the cold temperature, the wind chills. So we carry on with some pretty significant wind chills as well. So the winter weather travel advisory, as we go through the day tomorrow, it's going to be highly localized, but we are looking at very poor visibility, 5 to 15 centimeters. City of Toronto's in this, also Hamilton, Halton, Peel, but it may be that area kind of just to the west of the city, like getting over towards Mississauga, and around towards Oakville, Burlington, through all these areas we'll be kind of watching. And higher elevations or a few areas where it sets up, we may see those accumulations going even above 15 centimeters. So it's an east to northeasterly flow that comes in. So that's kind of what happens as we get towards tomorrow morning, especially, although it will kind of vacillate through the day. But then there's also a system to the south of us, and as that is tracking towards the northeastern U.S. and giving significant snowfall amounts there, it kind of tags through on Wednesday night into Thursday morning. So some light accumulation southwestern Ontario, but it's going to bring to some of these areas that have already seen snow from the lake effect, another dusting coming through and adding additional to those accumulations. So that's why the travel tomorrow, I would allow extra time for tomorrow morning, but you're going to need it if you're doing any travel late in the day as well, even into Thursday morning. Then this pulls away, and just having a look in general at what we're talking about for the city, 5 to 10 centimeters as well towards Hamilton, but I think we'll see some enhanced amounts over 15 centimeters in some areas there, kind of between the two for the communities that I mentioned. Southwestern Ontario, talk about the cold, -9 the wind chill for Windsor, but say Sarnia, winds a little stronger. It may feel as cold as -13 as we go through the overnight hours. We may not quite get to that in Windsor. We may be closer to Leamington, but we've got that surge of kind of colder air as the system's working its way up the eastern seaboard. Highs tomorrow, you could see those are also going to be definitely on the cool side when you factor those winds in, and feeling like -16 overnight tonight, and then look at that band, right? This is where that's setting up with that lake effect snow with those strong winds. So cold temperatures through Wednesday, even Thursday, nighttime as well. And then finally, Kelda, it's Friday. We start to see things change and really turn around as we go towards the weekend and another system makes its way through.
And lots to watch out for the next couple of days. Thanks so much, Colette.
The weather is brought to you by Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. We test, so it runs. It's hard to stop a train.
This next young man is definitely someone to keep an eye on. A 17-year-old athlete from Etobicoke's North Albion Collegiate Institute has just made history. Azeem Rahim is the first person from the high school to ever be accepted to Harvard University. Azeem Rahim has the story of how he earned a spot in the Ivy League.
Standing at 6'7", Azeem Rahim dominates on the court.
Last measured, I think I had like 38-inch vertical. My athletic ability is something that really allows me to do big things on the court and be able to detonate and terminate on balls.
And though there hasn't been much of a volleyball season, the athlete still managed to rally.
Going to Harvard is it's a life-changing experience.
Earning a spot on Harvard's volleyball team after being scouted. The straight-A student is combining his athletic and academic ability as he signs a ceremonial letter of commitment to the Ivy League school.
I use sports to channel my energy and to channel the things that I was feeling, and it was able to set me on a better path. I think sports give you a sense of responsibility. It gives you a sense of confidence.
Behind Azeem's consistency on the court, coaches and mentors who helped him realize his potential.
He's a born leader. He had that natural instinct and ability. We don't speak enough about his academic abilities.
There's roadblocks. There's definitely roadblocks. Having somebody in the community and a mentor that can say, yes, it is worth it. Don't worry about it. Just hearing that support makes you feel like you can do it.
So that would have been his U15 medal.
And a family that stood behind him.
Just the long drives to the tournaments, listening to music and things like that. Just all the time we've been able to spend together as a family.
When I heard of the admission to Harvard University,
how proud did that make you?
I was ecstatic. I couldn't hold my joy.
When he told me at work, I couldn't walk again. I was just in my head. Immediately I finished work, I ran home, hold him, hug and hug and hug. I said, Azeem, you make me proud. You make me proud. Because I always tell them, education, you must get your education. When you get your education, anything else you want in life is there for you to grab.
Not everyone gets the opportunity to be around so many great people.
The saying, it takes a village, is not lost on Azeem.
Seemingly, they only have such a small impact on your life, but all those small impacts over the course of time make a big impact on one's life, right? Without them, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Azeem Rahim, CBC News, Toronto.
And finally tonight, a special holiday performance at Casa Loma today, an interactive concert for kids in York Region and Toronto. The Casa Loma Symphony Orchestra and the group musicians helping music teachers put on an educational and magical performance for about 3,000 students from more than 25 different schools. The music program featured holiday favorites and was put on as a replacement for school concerts that students usually would have during this time of year. The program also contained an educational component about instruments, orchestras, and of course, the history of Casa Loma. And that is our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Have a great night, everyone.